I have the Nets up next. I have them winning 26 games. Here's my thing. They were second in the league with shots from three-point range in terms of frequency. 41% of their shots were from three, which is absurd. They shot 35% from that range.
I knew they were chucking, but I didn't realize it was
It's absurd. It's like the Rockets, I believe, were 50%. They were just below that. And then another step below that is at like 38%. So they chuck. And they shot 35% from that range. Their offensive rating last year was at 104, which was good for 21st in the league, which is obviously a bit better than you'd expect for one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
And that's higher than any other tanking team. So here's my thing, is that barfing up that many threes, sadly it gets you wins. It does just enough.
Yeah, it does, because you're really just doubling down on hoping for those hot nights.
The reason why I wouldn't have them a little bit higher at like 28, 29, this is the first year they have their pick. And you have to wonder, are they going to try to tank? Are they going to bottom out? There's no incentive to win. I mean, they have been kind of like that frustrating team that you play in April where you're like, we shouldn't be having trouble with the Nets. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to be the case this upcoming season. I think it's going to be really fun to watch them, honestly, because they have like a weirdly balanced roster. It's all like slightly below average, but they're like 10 guys deep of slightly below average. There's no real stars on the roster, but they're all like guys that you're like, yeah, I mean, that guy can put up like
he can do it.
10 to 12 points a game. And it's just like a full roster that I think it's really, really going to be interesting to watch. With that said, though, I do expect them to kind of reel it back a little bit once February rolls around and they are well out of the playoffs. I have the Bucks at the 3 seed. You're making a face right now. The Bucks last year offensively, they were pretty good. They were 7th ranked offense. They were the 17th ranked defense. And it didn't really make sense to me because the previous years they were pretty solid defensively. And they have a lot of guys. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo is one of those all-around do-it-all guys. He can do everything on defense. He can absolutely lock down a defense. The Atlanta Hawks last year, I was looking through because I was trying to figure out who the bottom teams were.
Yeah.
Last season, they were the 21st ranked defense, and it's really only like a couple of decimals the differences, but they still are a level ahead of the Nets or the Knicks or the or maybe a couple of other bottom feeders, the Magic. That team has no one good defensively on it. Who's their best defender?
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you.
I really could not tell you. So that's what I'm saying is that Giannis and Coach Bud, they're going to come together. This is the best coach for Giannis and the best player that Budenholzer has ever coached.
And I think Brook Lopez is one of the underrated fits.
Very sneaky signing. The Ursan Ilyasova, an overpay, but gives you more three-point shooting. And I think that Middleton is going to take a step up. And I actually think he's going to be an all-star this year.
Wow. I like that call. I think Middleton
he was unbelievable against the Celtics.
Is one of those guys that every NBA nerd loves.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just something so lovable about his game. His shot's a little weird, but it just feels like it goes in every time.
Lethal from mid-range.
Yeah, lethal from mid-range. And I just really think Brook Lopez opens up their spacing nicely because they really don't have that knockdown three-point shooter. And Brook Lopez is probably one of their best three-point shooters in that starting lineup.
Right, and I also think that Coach Bud is going to help Middleton. He's still going to let him take his mid-range shots, but I expect him to take a few more shots from maybe the corners or from spot up. I just expect what he's bringing to the court in terms of like points per game and just in terms of efficiency and where he's getting to in terms of true shooting percentage to go up just a little bit, just because he won't be put in the low block and having to isolate as much. So I'm really excited for this team. I may be overhyping them just because I like this team a lot, and they still have a lot of holes and a lot of questions. But just in terms of what I think they're going to be on the table, which is going to be a much better defensive team that does have a little bit more three-point shooting, which was their biggest hole, I expect big things.
The Magic? I just don't even
Let's start with the Magic.
Yeah, because
let's start with them.
Yeah, let's start with them first. Okay. The Magic, I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
They re-signed Aaron Gordon. A bad deal.
Which
is nice because he was good for them last year, but his 3-point shooting was significantly hotter at the beginning of the season than it was by the end.
Well, the whole team was.
Yeah, exactly. You forget that they started hot, and then
I have some stats. You ready for it, Mr. Small Sample Size? You ready for it?
Yes,
so
I'm ready. I'm ready.
If you look back to, I believe it was around November, the top the number 1 seeds in the East and the West were Memphis and the Magic. The Magic were 8-4 in their first 12 games. And after November 10th, they had a 19-win pace. That is abysmal.
Yeah.
And they had a coaching change, which is basically the same thing. It's Vogel for Steve Clifford. 2 guys that run defensive-oriented, philosophies that, frankly, are outdated at this point.
Yeah, true.
There's a reason Vogel doesn't have a job, and Steve Clifford is kind of clinging to the end of his NBA career.
Yeah,
they have no point guard whatsoever. Like, they might have the worst point guard situation in the entire league.
Yeah,
and
who are they going to try to trot out there?
Mr. Depth Chart, you can take a look at that right now.
DJ Augustine.
Which is actually not as bad as I expected it to be, because there's worse situations than that.
And you know what my favorite part is? They still have an incredibly messy and overlapped roster in terms of big men. Now it's just top 5 picks.
Yeah,
it's not Bismack Biyombo anymore and Vucevic.
Yeah, no, they have Vucevic, Bamba, Isaac, and Gordon. Like, what are you going to do with those 4 guys?
This team, they need to move this team or something. We need to start over with the Magic. This is ridiculous. They have declined every single season in terms of wins for the last 5 years.
Are the Magic trying to do what the Sixers did at one point, where they're just gonna keep overlapping positions and hope that one guy hits?
But it's not intentional. The Sixers were like outward, like, we're not trying to win. No. This team is like, I think we got it this year.
They're the unintentional tank. They're the unintentional Sixers.
They're the most miserable franchise in the entire league.
Yeah,
even worse than the Kings.
Yeah, it's really ugly.
Starting off, New York Knicks. I mean, look, I've been covering this team for 2 months. And I've learned a lot about them. There's a lot of guys I never thought I would cover. Trey Burke, Hazonia, I wrote a very detailed piece about, and it's been fun. It's also been it's just guys I never thought I would learn this much about. The Knicks have had a very interesting last year and a half. They're in a bunch of really crazy free agency rumors just with next summer with Jimmy Butler and Kyrie Irving and even a little bit of Kevin Durant here and there. They were a really bad team last year. They started out pretty hot, actually. I believe they were about 8-7, going for about the 7th, 8th seed in the East, with Porzingis playing at an MVP caliber performance. He was averaging about 32 points per game on very nice efficiencies, shooting about 40% from 3. And then it kind of deteriorated. It really came to how he was playing. They were running him to the ground. I believe he was he put up a usage rate that goes along with Giannis, LeBron James, and he just really shouldn't be playing like that, to be honest.
You don't think so?
No,
you don't think that's
he's
the future?
7'3".
But you don't think that's the future for him? That
No, I don't think so.
He needs to be one of those guys who just is a volume scorer, volume shooter.
He's just a little tall for that. You can play him that much, but you also can't play him 35 minutes a game.
True.
Or if you want to play him 35 minutes a game, you just can't pound the ball to him that much. Or if you do want to give him the ball that much, let him play at the 3-point line versus being in the post, banging, and trying to do fadeaway jumpers. I don't really feel like they were using him correctly.
Okay.
Porzingis went down with an injury, and I don't think he returns this year, which is why I have them so low. I had them at 19 wins.
I completely agree with that. There's no reason.
No reason at all. Without Porzingis, they were at a 17-win pace. They put up a defensive metric that would have been worse in the league by far at 112 a game. Okay. Keep in mind, this is a team that tanked in the second half of the year, but they still would have been unbelievably bad defensively. I mean, they are 2 whole points worse than the Suns.
Okay.
That's unbelievably bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
They were 27th in 3-point rate. And they didn't really add any shooters. Mm-hmm. Courtney Lee, I think, is one of the biggest trade candidates in the first couple of months.
Oh, absolutely. There's no reason for that.
One of the guys I have him actually, or one of the teams I have him going to is the Bucks. I put together a proposed trade of him going to the Bucks for Eric Bledsoe, just because Eric Bledsoe comes off the books next summer. So it helps out the Knicks because they're trying to keep as much cap space.
I think they wouldn't give up Eric Bledsoe in that deal. I think that also Courtney Lee will be worth a lot less than Eric Bledsoe. He'll probably be
really. He shoots 40% from 3. He did last year.
He's 32 years old, and he is probably going to be traded for 2 second-round picks.
I think he'll get traded. But how high are you on Eric Bledsoe though? It sounds like you're not very high.
He's worth more than 2 second-round picks.
To who?
Trust me.
He got outplayed by Terry Rozier. Everybody, welcome to the first official Knicks Omni fan roundtable conversation. My name is Matt Brooks.
I'm Jennifer Gordon.
I'm Jazz.
I'm Dylan. What's up?
And together we are Knicks OmniFan. For our first roundtable conversation, we are looking to the future, I guess, because I think that's what everybody that is a fan of the Knicks is doing. We're going to talk about the 2019 free agency class, about everybody that's available, and go through some players that we think that may be interesting for the team to go after. So I know that you guys are very passionate about a pair of players, so I'll let you guys kind of take off with this.
Right. So Jazz and I, we feel pretty strongly about having Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Butler come to the Knicks. If those two guys came to MSG, it would just be a whole new face to Knicks basketball as we know it today. So, I mean, yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys think they'd be a good fit? You guys for it or not?
Well, first off, to just kind of put things in perspective, every summer, teams like the Knicks or the Lakers, they get thrown in rumors for the top free agents.
This is true.
And it's just because those are locations that players would want to live.
Big markets.
Yeah,
Right,
big markets.
absolutely.
And a lot of these guys have media companies that they're trying to start now. I mean, it makes sense. For these two, though, it's on record that they have wanted to play together for a while. Kyrie's, of course, from the New York area, so the correlation is pretty easy to see. Me personally, I obviously you can't say no. I mean, there's really nowhere to go up from then nowhere to go then up from here for the team. They both fit with Porzingis, and I think you can say that for a lot of guys. That just kind of shows you the player that Porzingis is. But I mean, yeah, it's a really nice fit. Jimmy Butler brings that defense, that toughness.
Yes.
He'll be that guy to bring everybody together in the huddle. And then Kyrie Irving, I mean, that's a guy, honestly, criminally underrated just because
what can he do on the court?
He's amazing. He's arguably the best, if not the best, isolation scorer in the game. Maybe next to like a guy like Kevin Durant, who I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be excited about it. And they would be a top 3, top 2 team in the East. I think hands down. I'd have them over Philly, and they're right neck and neck with Boston. TV. So this is a topic that I've been sitting on for a while, but I figured it would be a good time to discuss it just because we are in the off season. I wanted to go through the pros and cons of tanking. If you don't already know what tanking is, tanking can best be described as a team intentionally losing in order to increase their draft odds, and it's a strategy that has been used for years. The first time we saw a team famously tank was in 1996, when the San Antonio Spurs set their star player, David Robinson, for the entire season in order to draft Tim Duncan with the first overall pick. In the more modern era, tanking was revolutionized by the Philadelphia 76ers and their GM, Sam Hinkie, who famously trumpeted losing intentionally while stacking assets. This didn't just mean losing games, it meant trading away everyone, and I mean everyone, from their roster to start the rebuild. The trades didn't stop there though, as they dealt away young picks with high trade value, such as Michael Carter-Williams, and also acquired players with bad contracts that were paired with high draft picks from desperate teams looking to win now. Sam Hinkie became renowned across the league for his bold strategy after building a team from the draft that this year won 52 games. And now many middling teams in our copycat league have also opted for this strategy of bottoming out. However, not all NBA fans glorify Hinkie's tanking, and many feel that it's bad for the league. So I thought it would be a great idea to observe tanking from both sides of the fence. The pros of tanking. Tanking is the best way to build a contender, especially as a small market team. Outside of the Sixers, who have built a team from multiple top 3 picks in Embiid and Simmons, there are other teams that have built a strong foundation from being repeat offenders in the lottery. The Thunder come to mind with their 3, and this is still so ridiculous to say, MVPs. My Minnesota Timberwolves have also built a playoff team through literally living in the draft. Even the Phoenix Suns, who have suddenly become a league pass darling, have built arguably one of the strongest future squads in the league by losing for years and years. Let's take a look at the past 5 seasons to see who had the worst record in the league and where they picked. 2018, the Phoenix Suns had the worst record in the league and selected DeAndre Ayton with the first overall pick. In 2017, the Brooklyn Nets had the worst record. However, their pick went to the Celtics, who then selected Markelle Fultz with the first overall pick. In 2016, the honor of worst team in the league belonged to the aforementioned Philadelphia 76ers, and they selected Ben Simmons with the first overall pick. In 2015, it was my Minnesota Timberwolves who were the best that season at losing, and selected Karl Anthony Towns with the first overall pick. And then to close it out, 2014 belonged to the Milwaukee Bucks, who selected Jabari Parker with the second overall pick. Whether we like it or not, losing correlates with the opportunity to draft generational talents. Number 1 picks represent the highest share of all-star selections out of any draft slot, and the best way to get to that coveted number 1 spot? Losing. You can build a team in other ways, whether this be partial rebuilds like the Celtics, or simply by signing superstars like the Lakers are trying to do this summer, but the fact remains, NBA players choose their destinies more than ever, and guys want to join winning organizations. And in my opinion, the best way to become a winning franchise is to select the best young talent. And thanks to rookie contracts and restricted free agency, players are usually expected to stay with a team for a minimum of 6 to 7 years, making the draft also the most sustainable way to win. Point number 2, tanking allows for players and coaches to grow organically. This point is pretty simple. There's no pressure on both coaches and players when playing on a team that is trying to lose. For coaches, they are given the ability to run their sets and establish their philosophies without many larger egos that usually come from NBA stars. This is especially important for new NBA coaches who get the ability to adjust to the flow of the NBA game and try things without the pressure of upper management wanting to win now. This pertains even more to players. Players on losing teams have the ability to make mistakes and learn from them. They won't have to worry about the threat of an NBA vet and one that is looking to win a championship before they retire, yelling at them after every single error. Many players on tanking teams come from the second round or are undrafted and would not normally get the opportunities they receive on tanking teams. They receive minutes outside of garbage time and learn their place in the NBA, while also refining and growing skills that they may not have had prior to joining the league. The best example of a player who succeeded in this environment is Robert Covington, who last season signed a $62 million contract and was also the starting small forward for the 52-win Sixers, after spending years improving on some desolate Sixers teams. Let's move on. On August 8th, it was announced by ESPN that the New York Knicks plan to waive center Joakim Noah, presumably to maintain cap space for the upcoming 2019 free agency class. It's been more than a week since that announcement and Noah is still on the team. Why? The New York Knicks are set to pay Noah $18.5 million in 2018-2019 and then $19.3 million in 2019-2020. If the Knicks were to waive him today, his remaining salary would be stretched over twice of the number of years remaining on his contract plus 1. So that would be about $7.5 million over 5 years. However, if the Knicks were to waive him after August 31st, his salary would be paid the normal amount the first year, and then the remaining year would be stretched over twice the number of years plus 1. So that would be about $6.4 million over 3 years. The Knicks will likely waive Noah after September 1st because it both lowers the number of payments the team has to pay him in terms of frequency and value, while also maintaining cap space for that 2019 offseason.